All right, I'm doing things a little different today. I'm actually going to try and record a little audio to go with my build, returning to the basics with a fairly good starter build here, the Space Shuttle Enterprise. I've already built one of these, I believe it was the Atlantis, and so this should be fairly familiar for me. I am going to say that I have not scripted this at all, so if I stumble, mumble, blabber on, forgive me that. Uh, Going back to the basics, I'm also going to try and use a very limited set of tools, starting with a set of tweezers right here, just a nice flat end set of tweezers. I'm actually going to use what I originally used when I first started building, which was just this kind of side cut toenail clippers. That's what I'm going to use to remove the parts. I'm going to go ahead and use my hobby knife here, which was something I found around the house, very useful, especially in this build, which I wish I had had it the first time I built one of these. And then just some assorted cylindrical objects, since this does have some curves to be formed. Oh, and I did not fix the focus here. Let me get that real quick. My camera likes to get funky focus. Sorry about that. All right, that should be better. Um, General cylindrical objects are useful for shaping cylinders around. Um, I just grabbed some pens, a pencil, a marker for various sizes. One thing to watch out for is uh, some pens will have a sloped shape, or like a Sharpie has a slope. That won't give you a very good cylinder because it gives you more of a cone type shape. So I try to avoid stuff like that. Also, uh, don't use hexagonal pencils. You can, but they're not going to give you as smooth of a cylinder shape. Anyways, what I'm going to start out here is give you a quick overview of the instructions, I guess. Let's see if you can see that there. Um, you've got a QR code here, a URL. You can go there and see a 360 of the model, which again is the Enterprise. You look that can help you figure out stuff that isn't clear from the instructions sometimes. Recommended tools, wire cutters. In this case, I'm using these scissors because they meet. They don't pinch in a crossover like scissors. They give you a nice flat cut. Tweezers, again. And you can also use needle nose pliers if you have them around the house. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out. These are the actual from a Metal Earth kit, toolkit, but any needle nose pliers will work really. A few things to pay attention to. You have a marker that's dark black with an E indicating an engraved side. They'll use that to help you identify NE for non-engraved side. A little arrow pointer for attention. Pay attention to this area. And here, real key points you have when you're securing tabs, you'll see like here, there's a blue dot. You insert the tab and fold it over on a 90-degree. And if it's got a green triangle instead of the blue dot, you insert tab and twist. And sometimes I don't always follow the directions. I will often try and fold even when it says to twist. If it's on the outside, give it a better look in the end. Right here you have the diagram of the part sheets. Numbers call out what they are, and then we start the flow. This one is fairly short. You have one section there, here, and done. Larger models will have instructions on the back. Anyways, so first thing we're going to start out with is cutting out part number 1, which you can see right here. This is part number 1. I locate that on the sheet. You can orient it, matching what's there. And then I'm going to go ahead and insert here as close as possible and pinch to break that. And that will leave a small nub right there, which I'll try and point out once I've gotten this whole thing out. Be careful, it's sharp. Um, and you can use a file to file it down if you want, but you don't have to. If you get a Metal Earth toolkit or Piece Cool toolkit, you can get these, which are called flush cutters. You can also look for flush cutters on eBay and whatnot, and they'll get you a much cleaner cut because they will get right up along the edge and snip it off. But for this one, I'm going back to basics, bare minimum set of tools. Now this model starts with a very simple, well, starts off not very simple. It starts off with your first cylinder shaping over the top of this fuselage, I think it's called. I don't know. And they have a little roll bending without cylindrical object. You can start with a large one and try and find the right size. And then it says the cockpit window, the front here, is going to be kind of hand bent into place. And then I don't know why they come down here and have, after you've bent that down, it shows part 2 and says attach part 2 before hand bending down cockpit windows. Very strange. I would suggest doing a little bit of shaping on those windows, but not putting them all the way down before attaching part 2. So we're going to go ahead and clip out part 2. So we'll be ready to go into there. So again, I'm going to come here, locate part 2, and I've turned my sheet. There we are. And get a nice clip there. And there. All right, so part 2 will be ready. And one of the things you can do to help with shaping cylinders or curves that aren't cylinders is you can look at what they're going to attach to, which is this nose here, and try to use that to get an idea of the shape that you will have to form and try to match that. But I usually like using a cylindrical object to get that started, that curving. And most curved objects will have a etch pattern on the back side to help relieve, but with the etching on the front of this, they didn't have that. So this is going to actually be fight you a little on this curve, because there's no relief cuts on the back. And so I will often kind of give it an over curve and then flatten it back out with my fingers. The over curve just kind of, it gets all the parts that don't want to curve to kind of get a good curve on them, and then you can smooth it out a little bit with your fingers. And so again, I sometimes go out of order. As you can see, I'm skipping ahead. But while this is not already curved over, I can start working towards establishing my curve. And you can even put the tabs in and get a feel for how close you are to the curve. And you can see here, I've got a little bit bump up here and it's going back down there, so I need to flatten this section out a bit more. But also, out towards the front of the nose, it's got to curve a lot more up under this lip here of the nose. So I'm going to get a smaller diameter object here, such as this, and get a tighter curve. That's still not going to be enough, so you can come in with your tweezers and just slowly bend it a little more and move a little farther down the tip as you go and just work it out. Once again, I'm going to test the fit. We still have too much curvature up here. The nose is starting to look right, but as I straighten this out, it's going to be a little loose. So again, straightening this a good bit. And you got to be sometimes you got to be a little careful that you don't create multiple curves in there. Sometimes it helps to lay it flat and roll something over it to actually flatten it out a little, which can also be used to help establish the curve, strangely enough. It'll create a curve in a flat object, but it will also flatten out a highly curved object. So we'll flatten that out a little bit more, refit it, and you'll see that it follows it a much closer curve there. And again, sometimes I will leave it actually in the kind of in the test fit, and then, ooh, that's wobbling a bit. Then finish up some of the curve to get it just right to line up with the shape I'm aiming for. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. So that's ready to go. Now we're going to pull out this, and I'm seeing now as I curve this over, these sides of the shuttle are supposed to go straight down, and this is seeming way too big, this marker I'm using here. But if I look at this, it's not a perfect curve over on the end. It kind of does a sharper at the corners and then a broad across the top. So I think this is going to work for me to get the basic shape here for the top section, and then to grab, well, I'm actually just going to do the last bit by hand, hoping not to screw it up too much, and try to get these nice and parallel coming down. And again, I'm going to advise you, a lot of times you can find out how close you are by looking ahead in the instructions, and look to parts that it will be joining to. So you can see this here will insert into, let me see, make sure this is here, into this large piece, which is right here. This is going to get folded up, so I have to make it as narrow as this line here, and it is getting pretty close. I think this is going to work. I'm just going to give it a bit more pinching, and if you have trouble while you're pinching it, you can use a smaller cylinder to make sure that you don't over roll parts of it, and kind of keep the cylindrical shape as cylindrical as you can. You can look at the end right here. You can see, maybe you can see, I don't know, I've got a little bit of lost a little bit of that curve, so I will give a little extra focus to kind of bend out some in the middle there to reestablish that even curve there. We'll come back and we'll look at this end, do the same thing. And this should get me fairly close, hopefully. That's about, I'm going to go with that's close enough. Now we're going to come here to possibly one of the more difficult parts of this build, which is rolling this down. And these are very tiny, and they're all close together, and they're a pain in the butt. If you'll excuse the phrasing. But sometimes this is a good point to bring in the needle nose pliers, kind of get the shape just right, or close as you can get. And I've found it helps to not just start on one end, go around the other, but to kind of come at it from the sides towards the middle. And I'm trying not to bend these all the way down. And again, I'm regretting this model does not have the relief cuts on the back to help with these curves, but we're going to do this as best we can. So I will grab at various points as I come down. I will bend a little more and a little more and a little more as I slowly draw the needle nose pliers away from the center, and that helps me establish that curve over the distance. You can see I got this a little aggressive out at the end, and you can kind of use the tweezers to flatten back out parts that you got a little bit too much of an aggressive curve. Here I'm going to go ahead and use the needle nose pliers to do that some. That hopefully you can work this until you are satisfied, or you're tired of it and you're just fed up with trying to shape it. I know I've been there. I have stopped on some. I've also gotten really, really obsessive about getting these. This is an interesting thing. You can pull out a hobby knife. Again, I use, or I guess I haven't said this, I use a dull hobby knife, so it's not too sharp. It's not going to cut me. And the tip, the very tip has been broken off, so I don't stab myself with it. But I mean, I still could, but anyways. You can sometimes use openings like these windows. This center window panel had gotten a little off to the side. You can stick the hobby knife in there and kind of leverage against that to try and help center it. And it's just a good convincer in general if things aren't going where you want them to. It allows you to put much more concentrated force as opposed to, especially if you're like me and you have big sausage fingers. It allows you to choose where to apply that force on the model a lot more accurately, at least in my opinion. So I'm going through, I can use this to twist, kind of torque it around, and get those lined up pretty good. And then we're going to say that's good enough for now. One thing I forgot, this happens a lot, is they'll do this. They'll have you shape something down a lot like this, and then come back and put a part in. And I'm like, here's the tabs, but now it's closed up and it's too wide to get the tab in the slot. So sometimes it's better not to get it folded all the way down. In this case, I was trying to shape the cylinder, and so I was focused on getting that right. But now we can come here, pry it open a little bit. Sometimes they do it where it's not in a situation where you can really pry it open, and it gets quite frustrating. Now you'll notice they don't really indicate this here. They just put it in there, but you're having to pinch this front section in as you go. And when you have situations like that, you can stop and kind of move the part out of the way. The very front, it needs just a little bit of curve on that tip. And so I'm going to come in and I'm going to use my cylinder here, this pencil in this case, and just give a little bit of a kick for a curve at that tip. So it kind of closes up nice. And we'll test fit it again with the tabs. Oh, I missed. Hopefully this isn't too blurry, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I don't have a good view of what the camera is seeing from down here, unfortunately. Down here, my computer is up above the camera here. So as I said, I'm going to just kind of pinch all this together, and then once I'm sort of satisfied with that fit, we look here, we have a big gap on the windows, so we're going to want to bend those down to meet it. And I'm just going to do that with my thumb. My fingernail helps a little. And it's a good idea to do this when you can, before securing the tabs, in case you need to come in and undo something you overdid. In this case, I just overdid that curve a bit. And so that was a prime example. Oh wow, that was a big pop, sorry. Don't have one of those popper stoppers for my microphone. And take that back out. So I have way overbent that there, so I'm gonna grab it with this X-Acto knife and pull it back up a little. and see if we can redo that. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I will admit that readily, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm trying to rein it in. I'm using the basic tools. I have over here to my right, I am studiously ignoring a drill bit set that I pulled out as a found item around the house. Drill bits are great for forming cylinders because they have multiple sizes, and you can find just the right size, exactly what you need. But I wanted to do this as a, bare basics build with the minimum tools. Okay, you can see what I did just there. I probably should have told you as I did it. I will sometimes just use the side of the tweezers to press and slide and fold over the tab. You can also use a fingernail if you've got a good grip. And then I'll come back in and reach on the inside and pinch that flat and pinch this one flat. That's a good way to get it to deal with some of the tabs that are kind of frustrating to reach or to get support for. Another thing you can do is you can just give a little twist by pinching the tab. And the tabs on this model, the tabs are really short, and more recent Metal Earth models have slightly longer tabs. It's a lot easier to work with. Another thing you can do, or what I said, give that first tilt going, and then if you have two opposing tabs, sometimes when you get that tilt going, you can take needle nose pliers and just ever so lightly pinch, and it will fold those real good and tight. Then you can come back again and give it the extra little pinch from the outside. And you'll see here at the nose, I've got a little bit of extra metal. It's not quite following that shape. So I'm going to take this, reach inside, and kind of push up a little in that area and push down at these in this area and see if I can kind of shift that curve forward a little. It doesn't appear to be working very well, so I'm going to stop before I make things too bad. And then I'm going to come in here and carefully, and this time I'm not using my fingers, I'm using the X-Acto knife, so I can be really careful about how I do this. Except now I'm talking and concentrating on what I'm saying instead of what I'm doing, and I just about screwed it up. But I'm going to work these windows of this shuttle cockpit into the positions that I want them. Pardon me if I trail off here while I focus on that. That's pretty good. I don't know if I'm going to get a whole lot better than where I am now. If I keep fiddling, the more you mess with this metal, bend it, unbend it, bend it, unbend it, it's possible to break the joints. So you have to be careful about that. But we're going to call that pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. And we have now finished through here with just parts 1 and 2, and you can already see it's starting to look like the fuselage. I'm going to put this aside and turn the page, and we find here we are at pardon me, at part 3. So I'm going to flip back. Usually for me here lately, I've taken to clipping out all my parts beforehand, and I have a magnetic sheet that I laid out in order. But again, back to basics. So at this point, we look for part 3, which is right here. And clip it out. Nice and easy. And I advise you not just put it down on a table. They're very hard to pick up because they're flat. So if you need to flip things back over, put it on another surface, like possibly the package that the model came in, because I should have looked ahead. We are using part 3, 2 of part 4, and 3 of part 5. So I'm going to go ahead and clip all of those out real quick. So here's a part 4 right here. We need 2 of part 4. That's what I believe I said. 1. Other part 4 is located right here. Sometimes they sneak tabs in that you didn't see. There we go. And we'll see that this, if you can tell, it has the relief cuts on it, and that allows it to curve easier. The inside of the curve is going to be a tighter circumference than the outside, and so it lets it bend easier. It's interesting. Go to part 5, which we need 3 of. Go ahead and cut those out. Here's 1. 2. And here is 3. All right, these are going to be fun because these are cylinders, and cylinders can be a pain in the butt, but we're going to do fine. Cylinders are somewhat difficult when you start out, especially without a drill bit set, because in this circumstance, I would love to use drill bits because I could get just the right size. I'll give a quick pointer while I'm here. A lot of times you can tell, even if they don't have in fact, I haven't seen it anywhere on this instructions at all. They do not say engraved versus not engraved for cylinders, which is kind of surprising. This would be a good opportunity to pull up the 360 view and see how they built it in there, because whether the engravings are relief cuts are on the inside or the outside will actually affect the resulting dimensions of the cylinder, and so it can make it much harder to fit to the model. So I'm going to do a quick pull up on the website on my computer. Let's see. Oh, and a quick note, if you're building any one of the shuttles, they all use the same design. So this applies to all of them. You can follow this instructions. They just change the name and engraved on it. And so whatever I'm telling you here can be used for all 4 of the classic silver shuttle models that they have. Let's see here. All right, so pulling up the 360, I'm rotating it around, and it looks like all of these are with the relief cuts or the engraving on the outside. So we're going to go ahead and do it that way, which means I'm going to go ahead and start with the narrowest cylinder I have here, which really is not going to give me much help, but it kind of breaks in each of those relief cuts and gets them used to bending. I'm not sure if that makes a whole lot of sense, but for me it really helps to get it going, and then they're all ready to handle more of the curvature. Whereas if you don't, you have to bend each one individually, which you can do with the tweezers. But this I find really helps a lot, and getting it started means you won't have ones that end up getting most of the curve or most of the fold and then get a chunky shape cylinder. You're still going to have some of that because we don't have a right size cylinder for this. Other things you can use for larger cylinders, I should have said this. I'll use batteries. I keep batteries in my toolkit. These are things you can just find around the house. They're great for large cylinders. We didn't need one here. I'm really resisting using I really want to use those drill bits, but I'm going to resist. And here we're going to start. I'm going to take my tweezers and kind of use it as a fulcrum to sharpen up these curves a little here and slowly curve it in closer and closer and closer. Now, in a lot of the more recent models, they will show in the instructions right here, you can see that the line shows to insert it from the inside to the out, just straight to the tab. More recent ones where the tabs are longer, they'll actually have you come from the outside in. That gets very complicated to achieve. There is a technique that I've developed for making that work fairly well, and that's to take the hobby knife and reach inside and fold it over once you've inserted it. That helps a lot, but in this case we won't need to do that. We're going to actually come up and close it and just slip that right through there. And that'll give you kind of a teardrop shape, which is it's not the best thing for it. And I'm going to go ahead and use this to get behind here. Be very careful. Don't cut yourself like this, but I'll use it to twist that and get that edge up a little. And then I will use the tweezers to fold that over. And I like using needle nose pliers to try to get that nice. I'm having some trouble here with these teeny tiny tabs. There we go. Put the tweezers around and you can start folding that over and then give it a nice squeeze with your needle nose pliers and you will get that closed up. Now, looking at it from the end, oh wow, that didn't go so badly actually. Often doing that will distort the cylinder quite a bit. And so you can just work your way around and try to straighten it out. Sometimes if there's a particular kink, you can use the edge of the X-Acto blade to work out a kink. But I'm going to go ahead and proceed. I should have 3 of these. I hate it when I do that. Oh, there it is. Okay. If you get a part and it's like this and it's hard to get up, sometimes you can just lick your finger, tap it, and it helps you get it up. Just make sure you dry it off so it doesn't, get gross. And because I left that one off, I'm going to come here and I'm going to pre-curve it back again on my cylinder. There we go. Back to the tweezers here, and these are actually the bigger ones. These are part 5. Make sure you keep track of which is which, but somehow I managed to jump to part 5, and we're going ahead and shaping that cylinder first. These are going to be the easier ones because they are bigger, and as you get to the smaller ones, that's where you're going to have a lot of trouble getting the curvature right, getting the tab secured. But I'm probably going to be a little quiet here and stop rambling at you while I focus on finishing these cylinders as quickly as possible. So you don't have to watch me do the same thing over and over again for too long. Okay, I just realized I used a technique without speaking about it there that is very useful. So I'll explain what I just did here on the next one. Right after telling you I was going to be quiet, I'm just going to keep blabbing. You can see on this one, it did not get nearly as cylindrical. So I'm going to come in here and just brace it a little bit and then go around and just kind of push out on the flatter parts with that flat edge of the X-Acto, give a little more focus in there, and with enough finagling, you can get it to a fairly symmetric, or not symmetric, cylindric form. And you see here, I'm obsessing on these little tabs here. I like to try and get off because that's going to get in the way of the join. So I'm trying to get that out of the way. Anyways, there's that one. Now we're going to come in here and I'm going to explain what I just did on that last one. Again, one of the frustrating things is getting that tab folded over when it's so short um, there, and that's when I pulled in the technique. I just did it muscle memory, and I forgot to explain it. But that one's got a really big piece of metal there. Hold on a second. Sometimes it helps to fold it over a little to get it out of the way. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and insert this tab through again. Or, well, on this one. Insert it through. And again, I'm going to use my little hobby knife to get the fold started just a little. And then I'm going to fold it some more. And I'm grabbing it both sides here and twisting it. And now that kind of seats it a little. And once you've done something like that, you can kind of squish this section a little flatter. That'll help you some. But you can also reach in behind the slot. It has this little part that sticks out. Reach in behind that and then roll the tab flush to there. And that gives you kind of a way to pinch it, but without having your tweezers in the way of where it wants to go. And hopefully that made sense. I just heard what I said, and I sort of regret it. I'll see if I can. I'm concentrating too much on finishing this out. So another thing you can do is you can just kind of pinch around with a needle nose pliers lightly, and you can help pinch down parts that are too curved to flatten them back out and get your rough cylinder again. So there are the three part 5s. Now we're going to do the real fun ones, the part 4s. These are these teeny tiny ones here and here, as opposed to the big ones that we've been dealing with. These are going to be a real pain. I'll just tell you that right now. They would be a lot easier with the drill bits. Again, I advise if you have drill bits in the house, grab them. You can get drill bits. You can get a good set of small drill bits, even at like a dollar store if you have one nearby. In this circumstance, with a small one, I'm pivoting here. Sorry, not keeping all of this making a whole lot of sense. I'm looking at this one here, and before I was just sliding it through, and it was nice and easy to get it to slide across in the tab into the slot. This one is not going to be so friendly. So what I'm actually going to do, because it's going to be so tight, I'm going to grab this tab here, get it as close up as I can, and I'm just going to bend it outwards a little. And I'll put it this way so you can see what I'm doing, maybe. Going to bend it outwards a little so it comes and gives a little bit more of an outward angle. That'll make it easier to get it through the slot once we do this. And this is going to be ugly because you have to really crank it in to get the slot, the tab far enough in to get in the slot, and then push the tab down over the, or push the slot down over the tab. And I missed the slot there. We go, we can do this, we can do this. Yes, I do talk to myself while I'm building. and to the model, and sometimes I use colorful language. So now we've got that in place. I'm going to use the X-Acto knife to give me kind of a leverage, and hopefully, see, I can't even fit the tweezers inside there this time, so we're going to just go straight to the needle nose pliers, squish that flat, and now look at this, you've got practically a box shape instead of a cylinder, and I'm going to take it, and I'm going to pinch that point that's sticking out. I'm going to try to pinch that in a little, and sometimes it helps to go from both sides. We'll see if we can make this less ugly. And again, this is me being obsessed with getting it as close as possible. And if this is your first model, don't expect to have a perfect circle here. I definitely didn't have on mine. It took me a while to get as obsessive about these as I am, but I'm giving it a try. You know what you're going to be happy with, and don't compare your builds to other people's builds. What you build is for you, and I'm not going to hold your builds up to the same expectations as mine. You built it, and that's awesome. It doesn't matter if it's got mistakes. Also, just as an FYI, you're going to be hard on yourself compared to what you won't see the mistakes other people made, but they'll see their mistakes, and it's just this vicious cycle of what you focus on is what you made a mistake or didn't turn out as nice as you like, but other people will barely see that. But anyways, I'm going to work on this a little and try to get it. I mean, there's no way I'm going to get this perfect. It's just not going to happen. One thing to keep in mind, I'm working on this end. The tabs are sticking out. That end's not going to be quite as noticeable because that is going to be flush up against the metal. So I should really be looking at this end. This end is going to be the end that's facing out. So if I'm going to focus on something, I really should be focusing on it as opposed to the other side. And I'm just really annoyed by this one corner here that's just refusing. Oh, and see, I overdid it. Now I got that all flat. This is another approach you can use, is pinching from the outside and trying to even it that way. There are several ways to try and do this, and none of them will do it perfectly. So we're going to call it on that one, and I'm going to start another one. This time I'll try to actually be quiet while I do it. Oh, that was bad. You can see all that curvature just came down. Oh, shoot. I am trying to break this piece. I am over adjusting, and I just did a quick bend back there, and that could very easily cause a snap on one of these relief cuts, so you have to be very careful. It's possible I have overbent that tab, and that's what's causing me some trouble, so we're going to try and get this through and not break this apart. And I'm going to be very careful from here about how much I try to correct my mistakes or my shaping on this one, because if I try too hard, if I'm not gentle, I could very easily break it apart. That happened to me with a canine model from Doctor Who. I was trying to get it nice and curved, and I kept fiddling, and then it just broke apart. And it was the collar that where it goes around the canine's neck, and it just snapped. And I was so upset with myself for that because I should have known better. I had built many, many models by that point, and I knew I was pushing it. I am giving this a bit of attention because it's very squared. And I'd like it to be more rounded than squared. So we're giving it a little bit of 11, but at the same time, we're being very gentle as we go here, because any too much, I could very easily give it too much stress in certain spots and just snap it. So I'm going to give one attempt to add a little curve to this flat spot. And if this does not work, I might just have to call it so I don't break it. I am not super pleased with that because I am a perfectionist. I am really hard on myself, but I need to stop myself before I get too far. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit on the tab side, do a little bit there, just a smidge, and we're going to call that. All right, so all of that prep work, now we're going to pick up this piece. And something I was going to say earlier, on a lot of this stuff, you can see that there's a light side and a dark side to parts. When you see the dark side, that usually means the not engraved side, which did not work for these cylinders. They often make the inside of the cylinder darker, and so we're going to put that aside there. But for this, I'm going to go with following the dark side is not the not engraved side. So that means we're going to start by placing these on the back. Now, one thing I like to do, you look for where the tab is on a cylinder, and I try to put it in the direction it will be seen the least. So in this case, the tabs are side by side. I'm going to put it facing down, so that most of the time you're not going to be looking at the model from the bottom. You're going to see it from a higher angle, and you won't see that tab and that seam. And then we're going to come around here, and you'll see this is a triangle, so that means we can twist. And for twisting, you just reach around, grab it, and twist it with the tweezers. You can also use the needle nose pliers or any other tool that'll pinch and twist. And there you have it. I have attached the smallest one. We're going to move to the next small one. They're both smallest, but you know what I mean. Again, simple pinch and twist. I press it as firmly into place as possible and press the tweezers on there as firmly as possible to get that twist to have as good of a tight. You don't want to have these loose. It's just I prefer not to have it loose, I should say. All right, now we're going to move on to the three larger thrust cones, thrust whatevers, and I'm going to try and put the tab on the downward side. In this case, it's going to have to be to one side or the other. You just kind of choose based on which side are you going to say is the pretty side, or your hero side, as Adam Savage would say, of the model that you want to take your pictures from and put it on display. And I usually do the kind of the left side view. And so there it goes on, and we're going to check the diagram here. Again, these are twistable tabs. You start getting kind of in tight quarters sometimes with these twistable tabs because there are 4 of them here, and there's just only so much room. And this is I'm having trouble with this one here. All my workspace is moving. Having trouble with this one because the little strip of when I clipped it off, there was just a little piece there hanging out, and it's making it push out from the sheet. So I'm pushing it really hard to try to get that as flush as possible. Now here, these are kind of an interesting question. You know, I could put it down, the tab slot tab thing, but I'm actually going to put it to the side, towards the middle where the other tab is. Um, just because where those three come together in the middle, it's just not quite. It gets crowded, and you can kind of hide tabs when things are crowded like that. Okay, a thing I just did. A tab did not want to go in its slot there, and I did this before. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. But that's another useful thing for the hobby knife is if it's not lining up quite right, you can use this to just barely push it into place, and it usually will help get seated. And then once you get them all seated, nope, that one's still not quite there. Gonna give it a little extra nudge in there, and boom, now they're all seated. So it's good. It can also, you know, get into tight spaces. It's just they're um, very useful tools for building Metal Earth models. Um, you can get specially designed tools sold various places, various model places where they sell uh, these model kits online. You can find some really specialized nifty tools um, that will do some of this stuff. But I've often found that just the stuff you find around the house will work just fine. And a hobby knife, a lot of people already have a hobby knife or an X-Acto knife or even a box cutter can be used in a way to reach inside this. Now you'll see I'm kind of bending this here, straighten this back out. As I've been pushing this and manhandling this, I've actually bent this back piece a little bit, so I'm trying to straighten some of that out. That is me and my big fat thumbs and messing this all up. You can see the cylinders lost some of its circularness. So sometimes I will come back, circularness, that's a fun word. I'll come back and try to re-establish that shape, that form into a state that I like better. And again, a lot of times with cylinders, you'll get a lot of the tabs and then one will just not line up. So I'll just convince it into place with the hobby knife. Um, one tool that comes with like the Peace Cool has a tool set, but also Metal Earth. They'll have or other toolkits. Jewelry pliers are great. Um, they have this really fine tip, and you can get in there and you can get just on it and twist the tabs, and it's great. Um, it helps you focus a lot of that pressure when you're trying to hold stuff together. Gives you a nice point focus. One of the downsides to twisting tabs is parts no longer sit flat, but I'm going to come in here and I don't like that one as much. So we're going to try and, there we go. This one got a little funky. And these aren't going to sit on here super straight because those little nubs of metal that were sticking off. And that's okay. It's not going to be perfect. And you're probably the only one that's going to really focus on that and notice that. Pardon me while I reposition here. So now we've got, you know, this was the real big challenging part of this build was getting those cylinders. And I just smacked my hand on here, and like I said before, those little nubs are sharp. And I didn't cut myself, but be careful. They're kind of sharp. I like to try and trim them when I can. But just be careful when handling it. Also, I'm going to pull this back out. Be really careful when handling these because the little triangles where they came out, those are really sharp. Those will make you bleed if you pinch on them too hard. So be careful. So we're back here. We finished this. We're going to move on, and we need parts 6 and 7 now. So again, I'm going to take this piece and put it to the side. Flip the sheet back over. You can another thing you can do is have the part sheet, you can get the instructions online and have the part sheet on a computer screen so you can reference that and not have to flip back and forth. But for now, I'm just flipping. So apologies. So here we are, line it up. Here's part 6. We're going to snap it out. And I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm always putting the flat side of this to the part rather than the other way around. That way I get it as close as possible when I make that cut. To reduce those little shard metal bits as much as possible. If you can get yourself some flush cutters, those will do a lot better. As I said, and you can get them on eBay for not much at all, at least here in the US. It's not going to hurt you. This, according to 360, and as you can see right here, you can even see the ribbing is on the outside. This section right here, the large section, oh, I need to turn back in the instructions. I'm getting ahead of myself. That section is shaped as a cylinder. But if you flip it over on the back here, I don't know if I can catch this. I can't see what I'm doing. Hold on. See if I can get the lighting right. But you can sort of see there are etched holes in this, and the front is hexagonal. And so you don't need to try to shape that as a cone or a cylinder. You can just use your tweezers and shape it as a as a hexagon. So that's a really nice simplification there. Cones can be very difficult to form, even more so than cylinders. But we're going to come in here and we're going to say, hey, this is a cylinder. Let's start by forming. I like to form the bottom part of the cylinder first. And, well, shoot, let's look at this because I'm jumping ahead. This is one of the unique ones where part of the cone attaches to this cylinder. You can see this tab right here will actually go in this slot in the end when you secure it all together. And so I'm going to go ahead and shape out this cylinder, like I said, using this. And you can see here my cylinder is too small. But again, like I said, I like to go ahead and overbend sometimes if I can. And I'm going to even try to bend this side that's got the piece attached to it there. And then unroll it just a little. And just kind of smooth that out as best you can with the cylinder you happen to have available. Or like I said, drill bits are great. You can see here, it looks like I don't know which way it says it, but I'm going to go ahead and show the technique for going the other way around with these tabs on this one, just as a, hey, here's an option. But first, we need to go ahead and form up this hexagonal nose cone type shape up here. And so we're going to see where those slots, those dashed lines are. And we're going to go ahead and go around, and I'm just going to give a slight bend to all of those points. And then just kind of try and work this around. And while we're at it, what we're going to do is, and I don't know if the indication says that the tab should come from the inside or out. It doesn't actually show that in the instructions securing this tab. But I like to hide tabs on the inside when I can. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the tool I'm not supposed to be using. You can tell I really like using that tool. We're going to go ahead and grab this before I've formed it all the way around and gotten it close to the right shape. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to fold it down at a 90-degree angle. Fold it nice and sharp, close up to the edge as I can. And then I'm going to do a nice little thing that I've found helps a little. I'm going to take this blunted tip here and I'm going to insert it through this slot. And if you ever want to bend a slot over, oh, this is a tight slot. If that ever happens, you can actually use the front of a hobby knife to widen up the slot, make it a little easier. But you can also stick it in there and just give it a slight bend. And here, it's going to be going inside this cone, so I want it to bend in just a little so it doesn't push that side of the cone out and make it kind of shaped weird. So there we go there, and there we go there. That was helpful. Oh, I have a little bug that came in to visit. Sorry if the bug makes an appearance. I slot that over right there. And I want to do this before I close up the cylinder because we want to be able to open this up just a little. And I'm going to do this against the surface here. Usually I would put it against the surface so don't have this blade towards me at all. And I would go in and I'd twist to fold this tab over, but I'm going to try and do it where y'all can see what I'm doing. And we're going to get a little extra focused light here, see if that helps at all. Here we go. So I am reaching in on the inside with this, and I'm going to put it right behind. This tab is coming through. I'm going to put it behind, and I'm going to fold it up towards the part that it came from. So reach behind, and I press firmly down, and I just, I put blade down, but I should be putting the flat edge down because that's got a stronger edge, and I just kind of roll it, and you got to be careful. You don't want to shatter it. You don't want it to fly off, but you can learn to give a little bit of pressure there, and that gets it just enough over that I can then come back with my tweezers and pinch that shut, and you get a nice good flat shut fold there, and that's wonderful. And that's the basic technique that I actually use on the inside of cylinders. So we're going to come in here, and you can use needle nose pliers instead of the tweezers to do the fold over. The problem is it likes to put it out some, so you kind of put it out from the edge. You get a little extra tab that doesn't fold over. But I'm going to go ahead and do that here, and you want to get these down to a 90-degree or better. And here we're going to have fun because we're going to be doing two at once effectively. So I like to make sure that they're about the same angle folded over. And sometimes I come back and I use the tweezers to finish up there. And then we're going to use the same kind of technique with these slots. I'm going to wedge this in there. Oop, I did not wedge it in there well. Wiggle it till it goes in there. And then I'm going to use it to just kind of bend that slot over. The benefit of doing this with the X-Acto knife or hobby knife in the slot is if you try to do it just with the tweezers, you can actually close the slot and then the tab won't fit through. That is no fun. So by having the blade in there, it keeps that slot from closing up. Now for this one, I'm going to start with the top part here because that's the one I think is going to give me more trouble, and I'm going to line that up. And then the bottom can be lined up after that. And then you get into some real fun of how the heck do I fold these tabs over. And it can really be a pain in the butt. And so that's one of the challenges of doing the approach where you hide the tabs on the inside. Again, I'm going to use my hobby knife and normally, again, push against here so you're not pushing against your skin, but for demonstration purposes, I'm going to try and show I reach down inside and I press hard down and I twist to get that tab to fold over. And if you could see what I'm seeing here, you'd see that I got that tab to fold over enough that when I pinch it, it's just going to fold it flat instead of pushing the tab back out. So there goes that. Now we come down here to this cylinder, do the same thing. I reach in, fold it over, and pinch it flat. And voila, there is part 6 formed. And there's my little bug friend. We're going to stick this in here, and we're going to, I have dogs that go in and out, and they come in near here, and at night they like to bring the bugs in with them when we let them in, so I get to enjoy some bugs when I'm building sometimes. There is part 6. You can see I've got a little bit of unevenness to this hexagon, and I'm going to be OCD and try and fix that. So forgive me. It is who I am though, so there we go. And I was not paying attention. Look, 6, you do twice, which I should have known. So let's clip out the other 6, and I will hopefully be nice and quiet and quick as I finish this second one. You'll pardon me, I'm trying to stifle some burps here. If you hear weird noises, I'm sorry. That happens a lot. Just FYI, dropping parts, that's normal. I try to do my work on a surface where there are not a lot of edges that it can fall off into the black abyss, because I have lost parts before. If you do drop parts and have trouble finding them, sometimes a magnet can be helpful in locating lost parts. A very strong magnet especially, you can just kind of run that over the ground and nearby, and sometimes it'll pick up a part you can't see or hadn't seen. But yeah, it's frustrating. It's infuriating, I might say, but it happens. And my workspace here, I've made a special workspace for building and recording my builds. It's completely surrounded by edges where things can't fall except for towards me, and I still manage to drop parts and have to go looking for them. Well, we'll go ahead and think we'll be fine here. I'm going to fold that over from that end. I'm going to reach down in from this end and fold it. And then we can reach in and complete that fold there. And I'm going to do this one with a nice long needle nose head, plier head. A lot of times the very end of the curve is hard to actually get curved on a cylinder, And so being able to squish it flat will actually help your build get more cylindrical because it'll get that last bit matching up. Here we go with the hexagon. Get that nice and happy-ish. And there we go, 2 of part 6. We'll set that aside, and we need, it doesn't say it, but we need 2 of part 7 to cap those. Minor mistake there in the instructions. Some of the older instructions from Metal to Earth are not nearly as clear. They have, but they're, don't get me wrong, they still have some of the best instructions there are. But some of the older ones, you can see that they grew and learned and improved as they went. So I'm going to get that piece off and set it aside. And here's the other one, part number 7. Snip it off of there. And here we go. Flip this back over. I don't know if I explained what these are. These are toenail clippers. I can't believe I didn't explain that at the beginning. These are toenail clippers, side cut, scissor style toenail clippers. You can get them at Walmart or drugstores. Nice. They're good. They last a while. Clipping metal will dull them over time, but they do last a while for doing this. So I'm going to take this and it looks like they're supposed to go with engraving on the outside according to the instructions and from the picture that I'm looking at here, the build. On the cover, you can see here, it's got the outline, that hexagon. And they folded the tabs out. I don't like to have the tabs sticking out over the edge like they have there. So I often fold things in words towards the middle because I feel like that has a better overall look. But really, it's up to you and what you prefer. Some might not like the tabs being more visible in this central panel, but that's the way I prefer it. So there we go. With one, pick up the other. I knocked it off and I had trouble picking it up there. Sorry. And get the tabs in the slots. Go in your slot. Okay, I did not do what I should have done. I was just trying to force it. Because this was on a cone, these tabs are angling in. So generally you can fix that by just bending them out just a little. The other one, I was able to get it to slide in place, but this one wanted me to give it a little more love. So we're going to get that. And again, I'm going to twist slightly and then press flat. Now, one thing I just did there is I pulled my thumb back and I'm placing it between the tabs, because if you push on the tab straight against your skin, you're liable to just jab that tab into your skin and it's not going to feel good, possibly bleed a little. And so I will try to brace my fingernail against the flat edges on the back and keep my finger between the tabs. Just a little side tip there. Okay, so I like to come back and try to push these tabs nice and flat because I want them as unobtrusive as possible. There we have that. So we've formed this together, and these two side by side are going to go onto here. And you'll notice they have the blue dot for folding, because what's happening is we're coming from the front, and we're going to, from the front of this is the back of the ship, we're going to put these tabs through these slots here, and it's going to come out and be right next to this. And you don't want ugly twisted tabs there, right? You'll also notice you may not have noticed, I put this seam on the inside toward the ship, again, hiding that when I can. And now I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to fold that tab a little in, push it flat, fold it in a little, and starting to get some tight quarters, so I have to rotate it around and get the right angle. I am left-handed. Yes, I am of the weird group, but I am left-handed, so I come at things with a weird angle. Hopefully you'll find your own angles. Come back here, we're going to grab this one, and again I'm going to point the edge towards the middle. Hide the ugly. And it's not ugly, it's just not as nice as the rest of it. So use the hobby knife to help me line that up. Fold, push, or I should say bend and then flatten, bend and flatten, and bend and flatten. And now we've gotten a lot farther. Oh, that's annoying. These don't line up. The tabs on the front. And I could fix that a little by where I put the seams, but I'm just going to leave it that way and not worry about it because I'm not going to worry about it. Put that down and we are done with the, I guess, thrust assembly, whatever you want to call it. So now we need to get parts 8 and 9 out, and these go on in a rather interesting way we'll talk about real quick. Not my favorite part of this build, but it is what it is. So here's one of them, and I've gotten enough parts off the sheet, the sheet list, not enough parts off the metal sheet that I can see the parts that I'm needing. But be careful because sometimes parts will be very similar, and you should, if there's multiple circle parts or multiple rectangular parts, go ahead and check the instructions and make sure that you're getting the right one. I'm a little displeased right now with what I'm doing here because this piece has started bending backwards, and I really don't want to do that. Any of these flat edges, you never want to bend them all the way one way and then the other. It's just going to snap on you. But unfortunately, that started bending a little without my intention. Oh, look, hair. You have pets, you have hair on your models. It is what it is. All right, so we flip back over this way, and here we are. Part 8 goes into part 9. You fold this over. A lot of the newer instructions will actually have red highlighting showing you where the folds have occurred. I really like that, but again, this is one of the older sets of instructions. So we have 2 parts here. First is to fold this down. I like to just kind of pinch it down with my fingers, not all the way. Stick my fingers in a little, and then I'll pinch the end because I want that end to get a nice flat crease there at the top. I'm gonna get this piece out here. It's got 2 tabs, and this is very important. You have to have this lined up the right way because it's 2 tabs on one side, 1 tab on the other. So make sure you've got this lined up the right way with the 1 on this side, the 2 on the other, and then bend the front section down to a 90-degree angle. If you hadn't done that and you did it this way, then you'd be like, oh no, it's going to go on backwards. Then you have to fold it back around the 90 degrees way, and you risk breaking this joint right here, and we don't want that. I actually overfolded that a little bit, so I'm going to very gently straighten that back out. Then looking here, we have a green triangle, so that means we can twist these, which I'm going to go ahead and do. Early on, I tried to fold everything, and it's actually not a bad idea. Even when it says twist to fold when you're first getting started, for the simple fact that if you make a mistake, untwisting a tab is extremely hard, whereas unfolding a tab isn't as hard. The problem with folding tabs everywhere is often a twisted tab will have a stronger join than a folded tab. You won't have as much wobbling and, well, just generally wobbliness. So the next part here is to actually just pick this up, and we're going to slide it between, and this is right here, we're going to slide it between these two blobs. I know it's a reaction control system. I'm not sure. It's something. And we're going to go between them and get these two tabs right through there. You see them there? And the frustrating thing is it says twist, and I don't like twisting on the outside. So I'm going to very carefully hold this in place, and I'm going to bend these and then try to press them flat. The problem is, after having done this, if I let go of this, it'll just fall off. Well, actually pressing down, and because it's kind of wedged in there, it's not going to, but other times, in other places, it could just fall off, which is not my ideal way to do something like this. Now we're going to move on to the next step, which is to line all this up. And we've got two tabs on either side here, one tab on the top. I like to find that one tab and get that first, and then think, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. I do that a lot. Now, I'm going to come these two lower tabs here. It's always easier to work towards the less, having to align less. So get these two lower tabs into their slots. Then get the next two and try to just, and this is like a balancing act that happens all the time with Middle Earth builds, getting all the tabs in their slots. So I've got it all lined up. I'm going to grab one of these back tab slots, and it says fold, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fold it over. It's real close up next to this cone, thrust cone, or whatever it is, cylinder. So be careful not to mangle that cylinder when you're, or scratch it with the. And now I'm not going to go straight to those two on the top there. I'm actually flip it over and reach down inside of here from the back side, and we have this tab down here. And this is a tab that's a kind of a pain to reach, but I will often take it down and take my tweezers, close them up, slide it along this vertical piece that the tab has gone through until it hits it, and then just kind of push up the tab, slide away from that wall up the tab, and that will, while pressing, and that'll bend it over a little. And that'll get that initial bend, and then I can come back and press it flat. The other option is to reach inside here and try to twist it, but that's often very difficult because it's hard. It's this way, and you can't get a grip on it. Sometimes if you have a good set of needle nose pliers, you can sit there and just squeeze it until it twists quickly. It's really up to you, but I in this case, I went ahead and did a fold, and now we have that assembled. Again, we're going to put this aside, a lot of putting aside of pieces, and we're going to clip out the last few parts of this build, 10 parts 10 and 11. And I'm just going to go ahead and clip these out real quick, and then let you in on the thing I was most annoyed about with this build. The first time I built I think it was the Atlantis, but it could have been one of the other shuttles. And it just, it irked me. I was like, how the heck am I supposed to do this? And now I actually have the tool to do it, and I've been telling you to do this whole time, but we'll get to that here in a second. So we clipped out the two pieces. First thing we're going to do is shape this wing and lower body. You'll see that it creates this trough here. And so the easiest way to do that is to get your as long a needle nose pliers as you can and give it a fold from either side. It's a pain in the butt. Trying to get these long folds. You can, if you get far enough along and get obsessed with these models like I do, like I've done, you can get a tool like this. It has a little slot, and you can literally just slide the piece through carefully, not to scratch, get it up there, pinch it, and fold. Really specialized and unique tool, but it's quite nice. One thing I learned early on is once I get that first thing done, I'll just press it down against the table and then use the table to get that fold. And that gets me most of the way there to that 90 degrees without having to go back and forth with the pliers. Of course, now we're back to this pliers to get this one. And this has this nice thin edge right up here at the front, which is very difficult to get folded right. So you want to pinch as close as you can to that dotted line with your needle nose pliers and do just the smallest little fold there and find the way you can see it. And when you have this sort of recurve fold, you have to, instead of pushing with the back end, you kind of have to twist with the pliers, because if you try to push, you're going to alter this other fold that you've been already worked out. And so by twisting, I'm trying to pivot at that point, and I'm not pushing against other pieces of metal. I'm just torquing that one piece of the metal and trying to get it to go the way I want it to go. And sometimes you can come in and try to rescue when a fold is getting away from you like that. You can try and rescue it with the tweezers. You can do these long folds with the tweezers. You just have to do it carefully. And here I'm going to do a little bit of it because these needle nose pliers have gotten quite loose over time. And so when you're doing the really long folds, sometimes it just won't grip and you'll get folding near the tool, but not out in the middle. And here we are. I'm going to try and just fold this a little by hand, which is always an option. Once you've gotten the fold going pretty good, you can resort to using your hand to get some of these. But you kind of have to break that fold in at the very beginning and get it going. It kind of loosens the metal along that spot, and it'll be less likely to bend elsewhere. But again, like I said, you've got to get that initial break in that fold. All right, so that was a lot of fun. Now we have to do the other side. And again, this is going to be a little challenging for you probably if you haven't done this before. Be patient. It will come. I'm going to go back to the folding against the table thing to get that up, and you can look at the end. You can see here I did not get that to a good 90-90, and I can push here and push from this side, and that sometimes can get that a lot closer to the angle I want. Again, I'm gonna try and tweak that there. Here goes nothing. Sorry, I tend to make little toot noises or when I'm doing this, as I get sort of stressed about whether I'm going to get a fold quite right. We all have our unique mannerisms when building. Colorful language as a possibility. I have kids, so I use fake colorful language, which I'm sure you have all, fudgesicle and all sorts of other things. But I've been amazed at what random things have come out of my mouth instead of colorful language. I prefer not to swear as much. I'm not going to judge other people, but I try not to myself generally. But this sort of build, sometimes when things go wrong, whew, it's so easy to get angry. Here's another thing I'm going to do here is this front edge is being a pain for me. So I will turn it off upside down, and I will just kind of press in these corners to try to get that nice and crisp edge there that I want and am not getting. This is annoying me because I'm like I said, I'm a perfectionist. I'm gonna go at it with abandon. All right, so we've now got this pretty much done. I'm obsessing about getting it square in the front when I really don't need to, but that is who I am. We're going to squeeze just a smidge with this, just a smidge, and I think we've got this flat all the way across. We're good. Got a little bit of bend to this wing, apparently, so I'm going to try and flatten that out a little. Oh, it's got a twist. I've introduced, you put it flat like this, you can see stuff that sticks up. I've got a bit of a twist here. So there we go, that's better-ish. Again, nothing's ever going to be perfect with Middle Earth builds, with anything you do, really. So just give it your best and don't hold yourself too high of a standard. Now we're going to build the stand, and I am going to tell you, pay attention when you're attaching this stand. And I say that for a very specific reason, and that's that when I built the commercial jet airplane model, and when my son built this model, we both made a very similar mistake. And that was that we saw this slope here, and like, oh, you slope towards the front, because that's what you think, like a car. But if you put this sloping towards the front, and then you put it on a flat surface, you've got a crashing shuttle. And that's what my son built. That's what I did with the commercial airliner. So make sure you turn this around so that the space shuttle is angled upwards, because that looks a lot better in the end. Unless you want a crashing shuttle, that's fine. My son decided to leave it that way. He thinks it's funny. He gets a kick out of it when he sees it, and that's fine. That's just fine. I almost left my commercial jet airplane, Boeing 7 whatever that way, but I'm just too insecure, I don't know. I just had to fix it, so that's what I did. I'm going in here and I'm twisting these tabs. They are inside of the space shuttle, so you can see it's got the green triangle. You're not going to have to worry about that. And then I'm going to set it down and make sure it looks kind of level. I like it. And now we come to the thing that infuriated me, and that's attaching the top of the fuselage to this base. And you can see here, it shows the tabs going in these slots and then folded over. These slots are right here in this fold. And they don't often do this, but when they do, it's really frustrating if you haven't figured out how to deal with a situation like that. Because at the time, I was just using tweezers, pliers, nothing. I hadn't figured out the hobby knife. And the hobby knife will save you in this circumstance. Because when you slot these in, and it can even be hard to get them slotted in. You'll see here I'm having trouble lining these up and getting them through. One thing you can do, if you experience this a little, is grab the very tip, very, very, very tip of the tab and give it just the ever so slightest bend outwards, and that will help it slide past the inside wall of this. Because if you can imagine, here's the backside, it's coming through here, it's going to be right up against this piece of metal. And maybe you're going to see by thinking ahead why that's so infuriating. And oh, I just did it. Be careful about dragging tabs across the surface. I just scratched the metal right there brilliantly, ever so brilliantly. You just say that's battle damage, even though it's a space shuttle, it shouldn't be in battle. So then I was like, how do I get in here and get the tweezers between there? Well, if you have a hobby knife, you can use the edge to carefully slide between the two and just bend it over. Don't, kind of come up nice and easy and gently do it, because if you can scratch it with the tip of this, you can scratch the metal, but gently get in there and just twist the front and wiggle it down, and you'll be able to bend that tab right over. And like that, this one looks so much better than my first shuttle build, because this area underneath here is full of so many scratches from me trying to get that stupid tab folded over. And here I am, I just got it nice and easy simply by using a hobby knife. Something I wish I had known about at the time, and if this is your first build of a space shuttle, maybe you will be able to take advantage of that tip. I'm noticing my wings are not straight here, so I'm straightening them out because I'm obsessive. And I really should secure it before I worry about that. Finish folding these tabs. These two tabs up here peek out just a little and it bothers me, but I'll get over it. And with that, I have finished the Space Shuttle Enterprise. I chose the Enterprise specifically because, well, Starship Enterprise. I know, dorky, but my first one I got was not the Enterprise. It was just the first space shuttle I found. And I haven't built any of the others because they're pretty much duplicates of each other, just with a different name etched right there. And so I just ignored them. But I thought this was a good opportunity to do a beginner build for my blog and help people out who are just stepping in. And this is a great model to kind of test the waters with. It's got some curving, but overall it is a very, very simple, quick build, relatively speaking, that does incorporate most of these elements. The biggest challenge being these engines back here. So this is it for my first attempt at a narrated build. Probably won't do this very often. I just thought it would be a good idea for a beginner build to have a walkthrough, and you're probably tired of hearing my voice by now, but hopefully if you've taken it upon yourself to try and build this, this video may have helped you. One thing some people do is wear gloves so they don't get fingerprints all over it. I've decided not to care about that and just let mine be fingerprinty, and I'm okay with that. I can see here that my fuselage is actually a little too wide, and you'll do this to yourself. You'll be like, oh, I need to fix this. Oh, I need to fix that after you finish a build. It's okay. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this, and have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever it is when you're watching this. Bye.